This Google Sheets tutorial is referring to the dynamic graphing option that you have when you use Google Sheets. So I'm going to roughly explain this assignment that we gave some fifth grade students that were talking about speed, and then we'll move on and create our own dynamic graph. So what the assignment was to look at a speed graph that has already been created, and then go ahead and fill in this table of data to try and make the speed graph they create equal the speed graph that's been created over here. So students need to experiment a little bit, and they're going to put in some time that has passed, maybe 10 seconds, and then think about, well, how far would something go in 10 seconds? It really doesn't matter because we're just experimenting with stuff. So let's say we think something can go 5 meters in 10 seconds. We press enter, and this is the important part. So now it picks out or it displays a graph of distance over time, and we can see that it's somewhat steep. So now we're going to keep experimenting to see what else happens to the graph. Let's say 10 more seconds go by for a total of 20 seconds. And the distance this time that was traveled wasn't quite 5. Let's say it was 2. So there's a total of 7 meters. So I press enter, and you can see the graph got a little bit less steep. Let's see if we can make it even less steep. So let's say 10 more seconds pass by. And now it's only moved 1 meter. So now it's up to 8 meters. We press enter, and you can see it's starting to level off. So here we would just start to create a discussion of, in a speed versus time graph, what makes it steep or not. In fact, let's figure out what makes this flat line happen. And so we look at, this is distance here. So the distance of something hasn't really changed. It stayed at 4 as time went by. So we could do that. So let's say time went by 10 more seconds, and now we have 40 seconds. The distance did not change, so it's going to maintain at 8. So let's click away and see if we have a flat line. We do. In fact, we can change this from 10 seconds. Let's say 20 seconds went by for a total of 50. Now our flat line's even gone longer. Maybe 50 seconds have gone by, so 30 plus 50 is 80 altogether. So as we manipulate the data that we're producing, we can see what happens to the graph in real time as far as the changes that take place. So now let's quickly look at a different example. Let's make a bar graph that has to do with days that have gone by versus the temperature outside. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a small table here, and I'm going to include grid lines with that. And I've already centered it and bolded it and stuff like that. And now the important thing is we're going to fill in some fake data. So I'm going to put my days that go by, and I'm just going to put some temperatures in here. It doesn't have to be anything that's accurate to what is actually happening, but it does have to be something that is relatively reasonable as far as the answers go. We can't put 1,000 in here. We want to put something that would really happen. Okay. So after that, what you want to do is you want to drag over this table and go over to Insert Chart. And you can see that this has made a vertical bar graph for me, which is really what I wanted today. So that's good. I have this to look at, but here's the important part now. I can take this information and I can get rid of the numbers. All right, and now it's going to report that it has no data, and that's okay. So as the student now goes back, this is what I would actually share with the student. And they would go in here and they would start recording. All right, day 1, we go outside, we take the temperature, and it's 34 degrees. As soon as I press enter, now it has graphed that data and it's ready to go. If I want to change anything about this, by the way, I can click on the chart and click these 3 lines, and here's an edit chart. So over here, there's whole lots of stuff. You want to experiment with this and see the different things you can do. There's different charts here, whether it be a line graph or a horizontal bar. Customizing it allows you to change some of the colors. One of the things that I did notice that I'd like to change was the vertical axis, which is this right here, and choosing a minimum and a maximum for what I'm doing here. So I did like that it's 0 degrees up to 80, so I'm not going to mess with this, but at some points you do want to have a minimum and a maximum so that you produce the right results. So let's go back to this. Day 2, let's say day 2 it got a little bit warmer, went up to 45 degrees. I press enter. All right, great. So here it's manipulating the data in a way I don't want. So now the minimum is 34 degrees, and I really don't want the minimum to be 34 on this table. I want the minimum to be 0. So I'm going to go to edit the chart. And I'm going to scroll to the vertical axis here, put the minimum to be 0 degrees and the maximum to be 100. Now I close this. Now that looks a little bit better. So let's go back to this now. Day 3, let's say day 3 it was warming up even more, 55 degrees. Day 4, a cold front came through and it was 41 degrees. So you can see as the student enters the data, that changes what gets produced over on the table here. Okay, and now that I have that minimum and maximum, it's not going to be goofy looking. So day 1, let's say 33 degrees, day 2, 42 degrees, and you can see it always starts at 0, ends at 100. So the key to all this is to make the table, fill in the numbers, get all the variables the way you want them, and then delete the numbers and let the students fill that stuff in and have them have discussions about what the bar graph looks like versus the table of data, or what the line graph looks like versus the table of data, and comparing the two things and having some really good higher level discussions about that.